We're late to the party, but you wanted our review of the Soundcore Liberty 4 Pro. So let's compare them with everything. Earbuds from Samsung, OnePlus, Jabra, EarFun, and more. Namaste, we're DHRME. Dudes happily recommend me earbuds. That's what we do.
On comfort and fit, although oval-shaped tips are becoming quite mainstream, Soundcore is sticking to rounded ones. And that's perfectly fine with us because these tips fit really well. Not sure if it's the extra grippiness of the silicone material used or the design of the buds, but we like it. The usual trade-off with rounded tips is a better seal but worse comfort, which was the case for me, but interestingly not for Kevin. For him, Soundcore nailed both comfort and fit. So your ears might disagree with one of us. You also get 6 sizes of tips included in the box, far above the average 3 or 4 sizes. So getting the right fit for you shouldn't be an issue. Overall, these buds are suited even for the worker outer. The buds are also IPX5 rated, but that's against water only, so just keep them safe from dust. And there's no rating for the case, so keep that safe in your pocket.
Okay, the case. Let's address the elephant in the room, the smart charging case. It's so smart that it has its own firmware that you can update. You can get them in very nice colors, black, white, and blue, but for some reason, Soundcore also sent us a green. We dig it. And it's a push lid case, which is important if you want to open and close your cases one-handed. Pushing it open reveals the clear display and a touch-sensitive surface that can be used to cycle through the different options. Initially, you see the battery life though. So when the case is closed, there's no way to see the battery life. So how do you know it's charging? Well, there's a small charging LED at the back above the Type-C port. You can also get a clear lid case, and that will help you see through to the display in the case. What else can you do with the smarts in the case? So you can change ANC levels, spatial audio modes, atmospheric mode, find your lost buds, and that remote camera shutter worked for me with my iPhone 15 Pro, but didn't for Rohan on his S24 Ultra. And while this is limited, it would have been nice to have volume controls or device switching on here. This is no JBL Tour Pro 3, but it's a good start. Reminds us of the early versions of the flip phones with a limited outer display.
You can charge via a Type-C USB cable, but also wirelessly. Battery life is advertised at 7.5 hours with ANC on, and that checked out in our DHRME battery test. We got 7 hours and 42 minutes with LDAC and ANC on. That's some solid battery life. Soundcore's anchor heritage is evident in the charging speed too. You're getting an insane 4 hours of battery from just 5 minutes of charging. Cheaper buds have been doing the display thing for years. We first saw it on the Tozo Golden X1, which did it a couple of years ago. Tozo was showing battery life numbers on a display in the charging case, and we are glad this is becoming a thing now. Every time you open up the charging case, you see how much juice you have in the buds and a progress indicator below that for the charging case. Soundcore went the extra mile though, and we love this kind of attention to detail. When you drop the buds back in the case, you see the charging percentage numbers in real time. Reminded us of the TicWatch 5 Pro. Very cool.
The stem style buds are operated using squeeze controls. The controls work well, but we did notice that sometimes they do nothing. You do hear audio coming from that bud, just the controls don't work. The way you fix it is by taking the bud out and putting it back in your ear. So there seems to be something off with the wear sensor and the touch controls getting enabled. Besides that, we really like the fact that you can stroke the stems to control volume. The buds do have a shiny finish across the entire bud. Not necessarily our cup of chai, but you might be into that. The buds are well built, definitely not cheap feeling. And the same goes for that case. The Soundcore app gives you a ton of customization. One of them being which options you can see in the smart charging case. We just ended up turning everything on. But despite all those extras, there's one missing that a bunch of you value, a game or low latency mode. It doesn't affect my Word Feud or chess game playing, but you gamers out there will be a bit disappointed. You get a bunch of sound customization options, but we'll get to that in the sound quality section of this video. The last tab in the app lets you customize the squeeze gestures for single, double, triple, and long press. Not everything is customizable though. The stroking and the call controls are fixed.
In the app, you can turn on Easy Chat, which is similar to Sony's Speak to Chat or Apple's Conversation Awareness and so many other names from so many other brands. All it means is that the earbuds will detect if you're speaking and lower the volume of your audio as well as amplify vocals so that you can have a conversation. This feature was hit or miss. It caught my voice sometimes, some other times it didn't care. Not very easy. We'd just turn this off. A wear sensor to automatically pause and resume your audio is present if you take a bud out of your ear, and it's a nice to have feature. Soundcore also added this and it works for the most part. It's not instant though, and there is about 2 or 3 seconds of lag. And there are a bunch of smaller features that you can expect here, like a fit test, find your buds, and auto power off. There's also an adaptive sound leakage compensation, but you get multi-point support, appropriately called dual connection by Soundcore, because two ain't very multi. The buds can stay connected to 2 devices at the same time. This worked really well in our testing. In the app, you can see a device list and you can switch connections from there too. Unfortunately, you can't connect to the buds from a previously paired device that isn't currently connected. You can't just pull the connection over. You have to use the app or put them back in pairing mode or disconnect one of the connected devices.
We test and rank all earbuds, and for ANC, we put the Liberty 4 Pro at the highest tier, Tier S. Excellent ANC performance, very comparable to the AirPods Pro 2. The low end is on par with them. If anything, it lets in a tiny bit more of the mid-range frequencies like voices, but otherwise they are almost similar. The transparency is Tier A, very similar performance to the likes of the Nothing Ear. Does a decent job at making you aware of your environment, but not the nothing in your ears experience. It especially struggles with letting in the low end fully. We're not sure if that's a design choice from Soundcore, but voices are let in well. There are just 2 issues we have in this department. There is noticeable white noise with either ANC or transparency enabled, and you will hear it in a quiet space. And it's not just white noise, but there's also occlusion, which is something you will only notice when you start speaking with the earbuds in. That feeling of hearing your own voice through your skull. Even at full transparency, it doesn't go away. And we felt it more on the left earbud than on the right one.
You can adjust the ANC mode from the buds, and you get a fine-grained 10-point ANC slider on the smart charging case and in the app. And good news, bringing the slider to the middle turns off ANC and transparency. For those of you who prefer that setting sometimes, there's also a new atmospheric option in the app and the charging case. Standard atmospheric pressure is 1.0, but that may change depending on your altitude, like when you're on a flight, for example, or mountaineering. The buds should be able to detect this change and adjust your noise cancelling accordingly. You can have this happen automatically or manually. Now, we haven't been mountaineering or on an airplane recently, so we couldn't test it. Anyone else try this? We're curious. Let us know in the comments. And we're not done. Like we said, these buds are packed to the gills with features. There's also wind noise reduction mode, which is just okay. It blocks a bit of the wind, but not all of it. And along with blocking the wind, it also blocks out a large chunk of the noise, which isn't ideal if you're cycling in traffic. Can someone make a good transparency mode for us bikers?
Speaking of, we biked and stood next to traffic to test how these are with phone calls. Well, don't just listen to us talk about it, listen to them for yourself.
All right, a noisy mic test on the Soundcore Liberty 4 Pro with cars in the background. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, making these mic samples is a lot of work, so if you appreciate the effort and enjoy the reviews, hit that subscribe button. On to the results. The Liberty 4 Pro does an amazing job in both noisy and windy environments. Impressive. Fachmann controls include the ability to answer, hang up, and change volume straight from the buds. That's it. You can't change the ANC mode or mute the mics. You can, however, change the ANC level from the charging case though. Let's talk about sound. To start with, there's a considerable difference in the sound with ANC on and off. We always prefer Soundcore products with ANC on, but this time there's also a strange bump in the mids with ANC on, which is disappointing to see. A company of Soundcore's resources should have fixed these kind of tuning issues by now.
And these are loud. On the bright side, there is safe volume, a feature that you can use to limit volume between 75 and 100 dB so you don't damage your hearing. Useful, guys. Always use volume limiting, but in case you need insane volume for some reason, or if you have a lower volume recording, you're covered. There are two kinds of hearing tests that you get, an objective ear measurement test called Hear ID and a preference test with some obscure music. I never liked the subjective stuff, so I'm happy Hear ID is there. Now, I've got my ears measured by an audiologist, and I must say that the results of Hear ID are just okay, not super accurate. For me, the annoying thing is that these go into ANC mode for the test, and the ANC mode has so much white noise that I think it's interfering with the results. Having said that, do these sound good? I'll be honest, not a fan of the default Soundcore signature, but overall I like how these sound. A bit bass boosted, and for most of my listening, I use the acoustic EQ preset. There's also the 10-band EQ if you want to dig in and really tune these to your liking. But changing the preset gave me a much better sound and I was pretty satisfied with it. It definitely sounds spacious. Speaking of space, you get a spatial audio mode and that's not too bad this time around. You get 4 different modes. I don't normally use it for music, but in this case, I thought that the music setting was usable when these were on fixed mode. It also has a head tracking mode. And while it isn't quite AirPods Pro level, it is quite decent considering the price. You will forego the LDAC codec though if you're using these spatial audio features. Yes, you're getting LDAC as the default high-res codec and you have no complaints about it. Almost all Android phones have some kind of LDAC support. It's a shame that they couldn't implement LDAC as well as multipoint. Oh well.
The Liberty 4 Pro retails at $130. And as far as we're concerned, these are worth every dollar. There's very little to fault. You're getting a complete package here compared to buds in the market that are twice the price and that don't seem to be able to get it right. But these buds don't live in a vacuum. So what about them compared to a bunch of others? Starting with the OnePlus Buds Pro 3. At $160, they're $30 more than the Soundcore. We like that they both have the same squeeze and stroke controls. The OnePlus does pack a stronger IP55 rating, but has worse ANC at Tier B. On the other hand, the OnePlus has better transparency at Tier S. In terms of sound though, the OnePlus has the Soundcore beat. Only catch, you can't enjoy its high-res codec LHDC with all Android phones. They both have a lot in common: similar battery life, wireless charging, a wear sensor, multi-point, call quality, and a solid app. You only get 4 tips instead of 6 in the box, which we normally don't have an issue with, but we just couldn't get a decent fit with the ear tips on the OnePlus, which is the practical reason we would go for the Liberty 4 Pro. The basic requirement for us when it comes to earbuds is them staying in our ears. But if the fit is good for you and you don't need the smart case shenanigans, then you'll be very happy with the OnePlus. That's for sure.
Then we've got the Samsung Galaxy Buds 3 Pro at quite a bit more monies. $120 more to be precise, at $250. These are going to be hard to recommend for everyone. First of all, they don't have multi-point support. Since Samsung wants to keep you in their ecosystem, you can only stay connected to multiple Samsung devices, but not to an iPhone or Windows laptop, for example. Speaking of an iPhone, Apple users will not be able to download or use the app. It's only available on the Google Play Store. But the Buds 3 Pro still has a lot going for it. It's better for that hefty price tag. You get Tier S ANC and transparency, excellent comfort with oval silicone tips, and again, just like Soundcore, you get squeeze and stroke controls while being slightly differently implemented. They do have a secure fit, even though Samsung only includes 3 sizes of tips in the box. The calls are very usable, especially in noisy conditions. For the wind, we prefer the Soundcore though. The case of the Soundcore isn't huge, but the Samsung definitely has an edge here, albeit at the cost of the smarts in the case. But taking the buds out and returning them to the Soundcore case is far easier. Just too much finger gymnastics involved on the Samsung. The IP57 on the Samsung is way stronger than the measly IPX5 on the Soundcore. So if you're planning to really get down and dirty with your earbuds, then this will be important. Now, battery life is similar at around 8 hours on both, so that's a wash. And of course, you get wireless charging, a wear sensor, and an app. But like we said, the Galaxy wearable app is only available on Android. But a lot of you say that the only thing that matters to you is sound quality, nothing else. And on that, the Galaxy's got the Soundcore beat in our book. That in combination with the top tier ANC and Samsung integration, these make sense for a certain kind of person. But for the value conscious who want the flexibility in their ecosystem, the Soundcore is still our pick.
At $160, we've got the Nothing Ear. These buds look a lot cooler because of that transparent design, but also because of their stronger IP54 rating on the buds and IP55 rating on the case. They've got a bunch of bells and whistles just like the Soundcore, like wireless charging, a wear sensor, multi-point, and an app with a parametric EQ. The ANC is a tier lower at tier A, and the transparency is at the same at tier A2. The phone calls aren't as good as on the Soundcore, and it's a real shame that you get half the number of ear tips included in the box. Just 3 sizes. The oval tips do make the buds more comfortable than the Soundcore, but the grip isn't as good. The battery life is seriously a step down, getting you only 5 hours on the buds as opposed to 7.5. The Nothing doesn't have stroke gestures for volume though, and you've got to do some complicated squeezes to change volume. So that's a win for the Soundcore. The sound on the Nothing is superior, however. So if that's important to you, or unless you're particular about that transparent design and you need those heavy-duty IP ratings, we can easily recommend the Soundcore and save you some cash in the process.
Then we've got another pricey pair, the Jabra Elite 10 Gen 2 at $280. They come in a ton of colors, and these are one of the few that still sport actual physical button controls. And we are buttonophiles. We just like how tactile and easy they are to use. The next best thing is squeeze and stroke controls like on the Soundcore. The Jabra does have a more serious IP rating at IP57 on the buds, and the oval tips on the Jabra make them so comfy to wear. We will give it to the Soundcore for how securely they stay in your ears though. They both come with a feature-rich app and a smart charging case. Smart in a different way though. The Jabra's charging case can act as a wireless audio transmitter, so say you want to watch TV but listen to the audio on your earbuds, you can do that. Or what about using the in-flight infotainment? No issues, I've done that on a flight. The ANC and Transparency are on the same level, and the phone calls are pretty good too. Battery life is also around the 7-hour mark, and you get those same extra features like wireless charging, a wear sensor, and multi-point. Jabra's tuning is a bit odd, but we really like how they sound. There is the small fact that Jabra is discontinuing their entire retail audio business, but they will continue supporting their products for a while. So where does that leave us? Well, the Jabra is really for someone who's particular about button controls, serious comfort with a strong IP rating and that audio transmitting case. We personally picked the Jabra for their hours-long comfort, but it's hard to justify the price difference if we're being honest.
The EarFun Air 4 Pros have been one of the most loved buds of 2024. Yours and ours. At $90 and often cheaper, they cost less than the Soundcore, and while still checking a lot of boxes. They actually have a slightly more compact case and still manage to pack in wireless charging and, best of all, compatibility with multiple high-res codecs. aptX lossless and LDAC. Now, how much does that matter? Well, first off, you can do multi-point with aptX, but not with LDAC. Neither with the EarFun nor with the Soundcore. The EarFun also has LE audio and Auracast support. And you get a game mode, which you don't get on the Soundcore. Sound-wise, the EarFun has a more consistent sound with and without ANC. But the Soundcores do sound better to our ears after playing around with the EQ. But do they sound like $50 to $60 better? Heck no. The EarFun is still capable, but the Soundcore races ahead with creature comforts. While the EarFun does have multi-point, a wear sensor to play and pause your music, the Soundcore does all that and gives you 6 sizes of tips versus EarFun's 5, and better battery life and stronger ANC. Both of these do about the same job at transparency. However, both have a bit of white noise in those modes and occlusion, the sound of hearing your own voice through your skull. And while EarFun does a commendable job with its reliable and customizable touch controls, if we had to choose, the Soundcore's squeeze and stroke controls are the way to go. And their app also feels more polished, though to be fair, we've never had issues with the EarFun app. You also get nicer colors on the Soundcore. Design-wise, you are going to have to choose between a shiny Soundcore color or a more subtle EarFun logo on the stems. Phone calls? We think that the Soundcore outperforms the EarFun in windy conditions too. But again, the EarFun is good for the most part. Between the two, it's a really hard call. But being the value buyers we are, we just say save your money and get the EarFun. However, whichever one you get, you're getting a good product for the price.
Now guys, Soundcore finally did send out these buds to us, but this isn't a sponsored review. We are supported by you guys, our beautiful YouTube members and patrons on 4 tiers, Popsicle, Icicle, and these beautiful people on the tested tier. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention our Fuck Mon tier supporters, Gamma Panda and Paula. You've been feeling the liberty to feel like a pro, and we've been DHRME. Dui!